I'm with Franny Waisman from the city of David, and we're talking about the Pool of Saloam. Now, it's just hit the headlines recently. What's happened?
Well, after 18 years, we are finally able to dig and excavate the Pool of Saloam in its entirety, and that is something that we are very excited about, and it's very new.
You say 18 years. Has there been something stopping you from being able to do that?
Yes. Well, we've known where the Pool of Saloam is already since 2004, when Eli Shukrun, the archaeologist, there was a pipe that had exploded in the road. And when we were trying to fix the pipe, we kind of accidentally ran into some really old rocks. He says, wait a second, you got to reroute, put the road somewhere else. I'm going to dig. And we were digging, and we found a tiny remnant of the Pool of Saloam. It's about a number of steps, but we haven't been able to excavate the whole entirety because the majority of the pool is underground in land that belonged to the Greek Orthodox Church. So it's private-owned land. You can't dig in private-owned land, and it's been kind of a back and forth. And finally, 18 years later, we have the okay to dig.
Wow.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I guess this is life in Israel, really. You're digging up something, but you're digging up the past, and you don't know what you can find.
Yeah. It's like new and old at the same time. We're excited because it's new for us, but this has been around for thousands of years.
Yeah. And how important is the Pool of Saloam?
Well, it depends on who you ask. I would say for our history here in Israel, it is massively important. This would have been the most important place 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem. So if you were coming to visit Jerusalem as a tourist, or if you lived in the country, if you were Jewish 2,000 years ago, this is the spot that 3 times a year, everyone in the country would come, unite around this pool. It was a ritual bath, and walk up to the temple. So uncovering this is like a gem of our past that says, hey, this all was here. This isn't some, fake story that didn't exist. This is real, that was here. It's now. And I think that that's massively important.
Now, it's going to be a full excavation. Has there been partial excavations on the site in the past?
Yes. So as I mentioned, in 2004, Eli Shukrun, he excavates about 10% of what we think the pool, based on historical documentation from Josephus' time, how big the pool was. So probably about 10%. So we have that excavation. And then in the 1890s, Bliss and Diki, they also do very, very minimal excavating there, but it's not anything full like we have today, which is it's a pretty nice amount, but it's like a tiny little piece that say maybe the pool is there.
Have they found anything interesting while they've been doing that?
So I think that the steps themselves, if you go to the city of David and you see these massive, there are five sets of close steps, and then a massive step, then 5 more steps. It's really steps that lead down to the pool. Just seeing how big it is, the magnitude of this pool is really impressive. And of course, everything that you find in a Second Temple time period, lots of coins, ceramics, nothing that screams out, Herod was here. But life, we're seeing life. We still have so much more to excavate. I think that's what's so exciting, because we've done really such a small job so far. And when you see how big the area is of what the pool might be, the findings that we could find are really, the imagination goes wild.
Now, this is just outside of the Dung Gate, very close to the Western Wall. Have the walls shifted over the years where the city of David is now?
So the Pool of Saloam is actually not outside the Dung Gate. It's all the way down the road and, really at the bottom of the hill, I would say. The walls of the Old City today, which are Ottoman, have not shifted at all. The walls of the city of David, which is ancient Jerusalem, have shifted throughout time periods. We have the small hilltop, which is during the Canaanite time period, and even David's time period. Solomon expands the city walls to incorporate Mount Moriah and the temple that he's going to build, and also what's called the Ophel. So in between that small hilltop of the city of David and the Temple Mount of today. And then later we have Hezekiah 701 BC, around that time period. He expands the city about 3 times the size to include the area of what we call kind of the hill of Mount Zion today, or the Western Hill. So the walls are kind of expanded there as well. And those actually go into the old city of today. And then later, Second Temple period, they're really going to expand. But yeah, the walls have changed quite a bit throughout history.
Is it expensive to do something like this, to do this full excavation? And where do you get your money from?
It is extremely expensive. Well, the excavating of a city of David is kind of a 2-part thing. Most of it is donors, people who want to take part in Jerusalem, who want to be part of uncovering this historical spot that's really important to the world. Jews and Christians and anyone who's interested in history of this area must see what's happening. So donors who want to take part in that and making Jerusalem connectable to people from all faiths and backgrounds. And with that, there is a small amount that comes from the Israel Antiquities, just like they give to any, archaeological site in the country. There's kind of a minimum amount that they help out, depending on how big the site is and how important it is. But most of it's private money, private donors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Is this a biblical site here?
Absolutely. Hands down. We're talking about ancient Jerusalem. This is, I would argue, the most important city in the world. This is where all of the, with the stories of of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right? Jerusalem is kind of the pinnacle of that. David, Solomon, all of the kings. When you look at the Old Testament, every single king from the Davidic dynasty sat and reigned in this city. And even onward, if you're going to talk about New Testament, that's all happening in this area. So when you say the word biblical, you really can't say that without thinking of the city of David.
So this could be a site where Jesus was at, for instance.
It's definitely possible. If we're talking about a man who was Jewish 2,000 years ago and lived in Jerusalem, I would say 100% any Jewish person 2,000 years ago stood at the Pool of Saloam, walked up the road, absolutely.
Now, was this pool very important to the city? If the city was under siege, for instance, this was water right inside the city, was it?
Yes. So originally there was a pool, the Gihon pool, the Gihon spring. There was a pool next to the spring that was a little bit outside the city, and it was kind of annexed to the city with a big fortress. And Hezekiah, what he does, he says, we need to move the water for the purpose of security. We can't have the water outside the walls, even if there's a fortress. And so he digs a tunnel, and this is going to be the Hezekiah's tunnel, moving the water to the Siloam. The reason it's called Siloam is because the original Hebrew is Shiloach, which means to send. And the reason it's called to send is because the waters were sent from the source, the Gihon, to the pool inside the walls in order to make sure that A, people have access to water even during times of siege. They're protected. And B, it's also protected from the enemy getting it. So it's kind of like a two-way. Yes, 100% important.
And it's very close to Hezekiah's tunnel, isn't it? Can people today walk through Hezekiah's tunnel?
Yes, and I absolutely recommend doing so. It is an amazing experience. You're walking through a dark tunnel that was hand-carved, thousands of years ago in order to save the city. And it actually lets out to this day, the waters still flow through that tunnel to the pool area. Like, it's possible to even finish digging the pool up, fill it with the water. That would be a total possibility.
And what would the pool be used for in the Second Temple period?
It would have been used in the Second Temple period mostly as a mikveh or a ritual bath. Before going up to the temple, every person had to purify themselves spiritually and ritually through mikveh, dunking in water. Had to be rainwater, majority rainwater. And so this was the main purpose of the Pool of the Saloam. People would come from all over the country, go to the pool, immerse themselves, walk up the road to the temple.
Now, an inscription was uncovered. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, a really fabulous inscription. It was actually found inside the Hezekiah's tunnel in 1880 by Conrad Schick. It is a handwritten inscription by the people most likely who actually dug the tunnel themselves. And it tells us the account of the tunneling. It tells us that something that actually we don't even know biblically, because biblically it talks about Hezekiah moving the water from the source to the pool. But it doesn't actually say how that happened. And it's phenomenal when you read this inscription. It details two different groups of people, a group that started at the pool and a group that started at the source of water, and they tunneled in opposite directions and met underground. To this day, archaeologists and historians are blown away with, first of all, how that actually succeeded, tunneling underground thousands of years ago and actually being able to meet each other. And also, it shows that the excitement of the people. I mean, they've been working so hard. Can you imagine tunneling in a tiny, dark, not a lot of air, and they're doing this to save themselves from the impending Assyrian army. Finally, when they meet each other, the joy of we're safe, the city is safe, must have been so immense that they said, let's take the time to etch it out into the stones. Maybe for no one to ever even see it. It wasn't really a place where people were walking in. It was for water. And thousands of years later, we find it etched into the wall, kind of telling us the story that's behind the scenes of the biblical story.
And when you find these places that are from the Bible, it's really proving that the Bible is correct and the Bible is true, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, this is one of those things. It's similar. We find that this writing that tells the story of the account of Hezekiah. And, just up the hill, we have the seal of Hezekiah, which says in ancient Hebrew, Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah. And when you unearth these things, there are people all around the world that believe in the biblical story, and that's their faith, and that's great. And there are also people around the world that say, we don't believe in that. Prove it, and then we'll believe in it. But if you have a seal that says Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah, and it dates to the right time period, and you have these inscriptions telling the story, this is saying this person lived here. You want to debate what actually happened? That's all fair game, but he was here. This was Jerusalem.
Wow. How exciting is this major excavation?
Oh my gosh. I personally am super excited, somebody who works here, but we are all very, very excited to see, first of all, just what it looked like. And also, it really helps paint the imagination, right? We read these stories, we hear about it, and it all lays underground kind of dormant for years until we start moving things away, and it brings it back to life. So to see the biblical stories come to life in our day is really, it's exciting.
And are you hoping to find some significant artifacts as well there?
Of course, absolutely. I can tell you personally, and I'm sure that many at the City of David would be as excited for this as well, but to find the Herodian pool, because the main pool that would be left would probably be Herodian or even Byzantine after. But I'm itching to see if we will find stuff from the original Siloam that Hezekiah built. Like, is there any remnants from the first pool from that story? I'm curious to see if we'll find things. Maybe even just a dam, because there's some sort of dam that kept the water in. I don't know, Hezekiah stuff. I'm looking for that.
How long will it take, to do this, or does it depend on actually what you find?
Yeah, it depends on a lot of different factors. There's no way to say how long it will take, but I could say that hopefully within the next couple of years, we'll have a much, bigger picture, if not the full picture, but at least a much clearer picture. Digging takes a lot of time because it's all dug by hand. Because of the sensitivity and the artifacts that we find, you really can't use any heavy machinery. So it's particular, which means a lot of time, a lot of people. And then after we find things, we have to date them. There's archaeologists involved. There's weather involved. We're underneath the open sky. So it's really, you can't dig all year round, depending on the rain, like this rainy day today. Can't dig. So it depends on a lot of factors, but I would say the next couple of years, hopefully we will have maybe a Pool of Saloam to go visit.
And of course, very close by, you're excavating the Givati parking lot as well. So are you finding a lot of things there as well?
Yes. I'll tell you that in the City of David, I would say this is the most important archaeological site in Jerusalem, I would argue, in the world. We have so many different spots that we're digging in. The Givati parking lot excavation is an excavation that holds literally, every single Jerusalem time period. You can find everything there. It's almost like the historical cake of layers of the Jerusalem story is all in the Givati parking lot. And I'd say some of the most significant finds that we find are also there. But then you say, what about the road? And what about the pool? There's so much. But yes, finding cool stuff.
So the City of David today is a tourist site. What can people see when they come to this site?
If you're a tourist, you can see, I would say, 10.5-acre hilltop that once held the ancient capital of Jerusalem. There are remnants from perhaps the palace of King David, the neighbors. What were his neighbors like? Who lived near him? Hezekiah's tunnel moving the water, right? A Canaanite fortress that protected the city. You really see the stories come to life. Seals, different layers of fortresses, even from the time period of much later, the Greek time period. Lots of Roman remnants as well. Of course, pieces of the road that would be the original pilgrimage road that led up to the temple. Pieces of the Pool of Saloam. There's so much. There's so much. I can't even... And that's so much, I want to just say, everything that you can see in the City of David today is less than 20% of what there is to actually see.
Wow.
Meaning we haven't even finished or nearly come halfway finished to digging up what Jerusalem really is in its entirety.
Are there people living today on top of what would have been the City of David?
Yes, there is a neighborhood. The City of David is really unique because it's both an archaeological site that is live, and we're uncovering thousands of years of Jerusalem history that people can, connect to. It is also a national park where tourists come. Millions of tourists come from all faiths and backgrounds from all over the world to connect to Jerusalem. And it's a neighborhood. People live there, both Jewish and Muslim, and they are living in the space where, our ancestors would have been living. And so it's kind of all mushed together. And that's what's kind of beautiful about it too, I would say.
Yeah. What is your hope for the future of this project?
That we can continue uncovering fascinating gems of our history, and all the while allow people to continue making beautiful history in Jerusalem. I think it's that duality. I think that what the City of David tries to do is, on one hand, excavate and uncover and allow people in the world to come and experience it. The goal would be, I hope that people in a couple of years can come visit the Pool of Saloam, walk up the pilgrimage road, see the stories, what happened here, and in the old city where the temple used to stand, right? And hear the stories there. And all the while still live in Jerusalem. We're not here to, clear everything out and just dig, because what's the point of that? It's life. The old connects with the new. We're creating and we're uncovering at the same time. And I think that's really a beautiful thing. And that's what we're doing. And it's baby steps.
Wow. What's your website for people who'd like to know more?
It is www.cityofdavid.org.il.
Okay, Franny, thank you very much.
Thank you.